You may not realize it yet, but the day you stop masturbating in old age might be the day your health quietly starts to slip away, not with pain or warning, but with silence. I've seen it too many times. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, once vibrant, now drifting. Erections fading, energy gone, motivation missing, and they don't know why. They just know something feels off. I'm Dr. Mohit Kara, a urologist and men's health specialist with over 30 years of experience. I've treated thousands of men in their later years, and the most overlooked, unspoken reason for their decline is often this: they gave up on themselves. They stopped engaging with their own bodies. They thought intimacy was behind them. They were wrong. Because here's the truth, no one ever told you. When you stop self-pleasure completely, your body begins shutting down vital systems, circulation, hormones, even your prostate. It's not just about sex, it's about survival. In the next few minutes, you'll discover 7 silent but serious consequences of giving up masturbation in old age. Most men don't see them coming until it's too late, but you won't be one of them. Because this isn't about going backward, it's about moving forward with awareness, dignity, and control. And before we finish, I'll give you a simple, powerful plan to reconnect safely. No pressure, no shame, just the truth and the tools to feel alive again. Before we begin, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time to do it. And don't forget to turn on the bell. That way, you'll never miss another honest, respectful health message made specifically for men like you. And if this topic speaks to you, even in a quiet way, type 1 in the comments. If it doesn't, type 0. I read every response, and it helps me create content that truly supports your journey. Let's start with the first, and often the most noticeable, consequence. It doesn't hit like a crisis. It fades in slowly, almost quietly. But one morning, you look down and realize something's missing. Erections that used to come naturally are weaker, slower, or gone entirely. And it's not just age, it's what happens when your body no longer receives the signal to stay active. Let's talk about how skipping self-pleasure affects your circulation, and why that one choice can quietly begin shutting down your sexual function. 1. Circulatory decline, the erection fade. I remember one patient, a quiet, thoughtful man in his early 70s, who came in after months of hesitation. He sat across from me, eyes lowered, and said, "Doc, I'm not in pain, but I feel like I've lost something, and I'm not sure how to get it back." He wasn't talking about love or memory, he was talking about erections. They didn't just stop one day, they faded. First, it was less frequent morning erections. Then, difficulty getting aroused at all. He thought it was just aging. But what he didn't realize, and what so many men don't, is that your ability to have an erection is not just about hormones, it's about blood flow, and blood flow is maintained by use. Your penis is part of your circulatory system. It depends on healthy blood vessels, flexible tissue, and a steady demand for oxygen-rich blood. When you stop masturbating completely, especially as you age, your body takes that as a signal. We don't need this function anymore, and it begins to quietly shut things down. The blood vessels narrow, the tissues lose elasticity, sensitivity dulls. It's not a punishment, it's biology. Use it or lose it. But here's the good news. It's not permanent. Even gentle, respectful stimulation once or twice a week can keep those blood vessels active. It tells your body, hey, we're still here. We still care. You're not trying to chase youth, you're preserving function. You're choosing to stay alive where it matters. The man I mentioned earlier, after just a few weeks of quiet, consistent reconnection with himself, those morning signs began to return. Not every day, but enough to bring back a quiet sense of confidence. Enough to remind him that his body hadn't given up. It had just been waiting for a reason to respond. And that brings us to the next silent change, one that most men overlook entirely until it becomes a source of pressure, discomfort, and fear. Because what's happening in your prostate when you stop releasing regularly is something very few men are warned about, yet nearly every man feels. Let's talk about it. 2. Prostate congestion, the silent pressure. A few months ago, another patient, George, 74, came in, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. He wasn't in visible pain, but I could tell something was bothering him. After a few moments of silence, he finally said, "Doc, I always feel like I need to pee, even when I don't. It's this pressure down there, like something's full." He was worried it might be something serious, maybe his bladder, maybe his kidneys, maybe worse, but I knew immediately what it was. George was dealing with something most men have never even heard of: prostate congestion. Here's what happens. Your prostate isn't just sitting there, it's working constantly. It produces and stores seminal fluid, and that fluid is meant to be moved, released. But when you go weeks or months, or even years, without any ejaculation, especially in your later decades, that fluid builds up. It thickens, and it starts pressing back. That pressure can create strange symptoms: that constant urge to urinate, a weak or inconsistent urine stream, a dull ache when you sit for too long. Some men even mistake it for prostate cancer, when in reality, it's just a natural system that's gone stagnant from lack of movement. No one tells older men this. We're told to be careful, to slow down, to let that part of life fade. But the truth is, your prostate doesn't stop working just because you've stepped into retirement. It still needs to be cleared, flushed like a set of pipes. And the safest, simplest way to do that? Regular ejaculation. It doesn't have to be frequent. Just once or twice a month can relieve the pressure, reduce inflammation, and help you feel normal again. George followed through. He started small. Within weeks, the pressure eased, and he told me, half smiling, "I feel like something settled back into place." That's the power of reconnection. Quiet, private, but deeply healing. And while that relief was physical, what happened next hit him even deeper. Because what no one warns you about is how skipping intimacy starts to shut down something far more powerful than your prostate, your testosterone, the very hormone that drives your energy, your focus, and your fire. Let's talk about how that slow shutdown begins. 3. Testosterone Shutdown. Your power hormone in retreat. I'll never forget the day Frank returned to my office for a follow-up. He wasn't there about his erections this time, or the pressure he'd been feeling. He sat down, looked at me with tired eyes, and said, "Doc, I'm just tired. Not sick, not depressed, just flat. I don't feel excited about anything anymore." He'd stopped going fishing, stopped calling friends. Even the small joys he used to look forward to felt like chores. And I knew right away what was happening. This wasn't just aging, it was hormonal withdrawal. When men stop all forms of sexual stimulation, their bodies receive a powerful message, one they don't even realize they're sending. That message is, we're done. We don't need testosterone anymore. And your body listens. Your brain slows down the signals to your testicles. The production of testosterone begins to drop. Not because you're broken, but because your body assumes it's no longer needed. This is how biology works. Systems that aren't used are quietly shut down. But here's what men like Frank don't hear nearly enough. Testosterone is not just about sex drive. It fuels your strength, your clarity, your sense of purpose. It's the spark behind motivation, the reason you get up with energy in the morning instead of dragging through the day. Once Frank understood that, he didn't need a prescription. He just needed permission to re-engage, to remember that even in solitude, he still had a right to feel alive. And within a few weeks of gentle, consistent self-stimulation, something shifted. He told me, "I feel sharper, less irritated. I even laughed the other day without forcing it." His energy didn't flood back overnight, but it returned, drop by drop, because he gave his body a reason to keep producing what it needed. And while the shift in hormones helped him stand taller, what he didn't expect was the next change. Because the body responds, but so does the mind. And what happens to your emotional health when you stop connecting with yourself? That's where the damage often runs deeper than any lab result can show. Let's go there next. 4. Emotional flatline. The soul grows quiet. There's a kind of silence I see in some of my older patients that has nothing to do with hearing loss. It's not about words. They still speak, still smile, but something behind the eyes is dimmer. A kind of emotional quiet that doesn't come from sadness exactly, but from disconnection. I saw it in a man named Henry. He used to walk with a bounce in his step, always had a story to tell. But one day, he stopped showing up to our weekly check-ins. When I finally heard from him, his voice was low. "I'm not depressed," he said. "I just don't feel much anymore." That's the flatline I'm talking about. When older men stop all forms of intimacy, not just with others, but with themselves, something deep inside begins to turn off. You lose more than just arousal or interest. You lose emotional chemistry. The brain stops releasing the feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin, the very ones that create connection, motivation, and joy. Slowly, the music stops sounding as sweet. Food tastes dull. Laughter comes less often. And worst of all, you may not even notice it happening, until one day, you wonder when you last truly felt alive. This isn't about shame, it's about biology. Your brain is wired to respond to pleasure, to connection, to the reminder that you're still here, still human. And when that reminder is gone for too long, it takes your spark with it. But the beautiful part is, it's never too late to relight it. When Henry slowly returned to his routine, including simple, intentional time with himself, his mood began to lift. He laughed more, started painting again. He told me, "It's like my world came back into color." That's the power of emotional reconnection. And while your spirit may begin to rise, there's another system you might not expect that responds even more powerfully to self-intimacy, one that holds the keys to your mental clarity, memory, and focus. Most men don't realize how deeply their brain depends on this one habit. Let's talk about that next. 5. Cognitive sluggishness. Your brain needs it too. One afternoon, a gentleman in his late 60s named Robert sat across from me and said something that stuck. "Doc," he sighed, "I keep walking into rooms and forgetting why I'm there. I mix up names, lose my train of thought, even in the middle of conversations. I used to feel sharp, but lately, it's like my brain's stuck in first gear." He was worried it might be the early signs of dementia, but the truth is, what Robert was experiencing is something I see often, and there's a deeper reason behind it than most expect. As men age, a drop in sexual activity, especially complete abstinence, can start to affect brain function in ways that feel subtle at first, but grow over time. You see, regular arousal and release aren't just physical events. They stimulate powerful chemical responses that directly impact your brain. During sexual activity, your body increases blood flow not just in the pelvis, but throughout your entire system, including your brain. It releases dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, all crucial for memory, focus, and mood. When you remove that kind of stimulation for weeks, months, or even years, your brain chemistry begins to shift. That mental fog you feel? It's not just from aging. It's from a lack of those neurological wake-up calls your body used to get more regularly. Like any system, the brain thrives on feedback, and when it stops getting that feedback, things start to slow down. The good news is, this doesn't require extreme measures. A simple, consistent reconnection with your own body can help sharpen your thinking. You may find yourself remembering details more clearly, staying engaged in conversation, or even feeling mentally lighter. I've had men come back and say, "Doc, I feel like my mind's waking up again." That's not coincidence, that's chemistry doing its job. But it's not just about the mind. There's another part of your body, one that most men never think about until it's too late. That also depends on regular engagement, and when ignored, it can lead to uncomfortable, even embarrassing changes. Let's take a closer look at the hidden muscle you might be weakening without realizing it. 6. Weakening pelvic floor. The hidden muscle you forgot. Not long ago, a man named Larry, 68, came to see me about something he found both confusing and embarrassing. "It's strange, Doc," he said. "Sometimes I finish going to the bathroom and there's still a little leakage. I never had that problem before." He lowered his voice, almost ashamed. "It's like I've lost control down there." What Larry was describing isn't rare, and it's not just age catching up with him. It's the slow weakening of one of the most overlooked muscle groups in the male body, the pelvic floor. Most men don't realize that every time they engage in sexual activity, especially when they reach climax, they're naturally exercising the pelvic floor. It's subtle, automatic. You don't think about it, but those muscles contract and release in rhythm, helping to keep everything below the belt in working order. When that engagement stops, especially for long periods, those muscles begin to atrophy, and once they weaken, control begins to slip. You may start to notice post-urination dribbling, a softer grip during intimacy, or even reduced confidence in your body's response. It's a quiet erosion, but it can carry real consequences, both physical and emotional. That feeling of control over your body? It's tied to dignity, to confidence, to independence. And when it starts to slip, men often retreat, but it doesn't have to be that way. Reintroducing regular, intentional stimulation just once or twice a week can help retrain and reactivate those deep internal muscles. It's not about performance, it's about maintenance. Like stretching or walking to stay mobile, this is part of keeping the body whole and responsive. Larry followed a simple plan. Nothing intense, just gentle reconnection. After a few weeks, the leakage stopped, and with it came a quiet, powerful sense of control. He told me, "It's like I'm in charge again, not my age." And that sense of control, of ownership over your body, is everything. But as important as the body is, there's one more thing we need to talk about. It's not in your muscles, or your blood, or even your hormones. It's in your identity. Because when men stop this part of themselves for too long, something even deeper starts to fade, and it's not always easy to get it back. Let's talk about that next. 7. Loss of identity, the quiet disappearance of self. There's a certain kind of loneliness that sneaks up on men in their later years. It doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it just looks like stillness, like sitting in the same chair every day, not because you're tired, but because there's nothing pulling you forward. I once had a patient, Walter, who used to be the life of the room. He was the guy with the firm handshake, the quick joke, the sparkle in his eye. But over time, he dimmed, not all at once, little by little. The jokes stopped, the energy faded, and one day he told me, "I feel like I've become someone I don't recognize." What happened to Walter isn't uncommon, and it wasn't about illness or isolation, it was about disconnection from his body, from his desire, from his sense of being alive. When men stop engaging in any form of physical intimacy, especially with themselves, it often begins a subtle erosion, not just of function, but of identity. Because that connection, however private or quiet, is one of the ways we stay anchored to ourselves. It reminds you that you're not just existing, you're still you. Still capable of feeling, responding, being present. Without it, the world starts to feel flat. And worst of all, you begin to question your worth, your purpose, your manhood. The truth is, that part of you doesn't disappear because you've aged. It disappears because you stopped answering it. But just like Walter eventually discovered, it doesn't take much to begin the return. One gentle moment, one act of permission, one reminder that you're still here. And now, as we bring all of this together, I want to show you something powerful. Not theory, not advice from a book. A real, practical way to reclaim what may have been lost, step by step, with kindness, strength, and dignity. Because this isn't just about saving your health, it's about coming home to yourself. Let's talk about what that comeback can actually look like. Conclusion. So here we are. We've talked about circulation, hormones, the prostate, the mind, the muscles, and the soul. But more than anything, we've talked about you. About the parts of you that may have gone quiet but never truly left. You're not broken, you're not too late, and you're certainly not done. Every small choice to reconnect, to feel, to care, to come alive again, is a step toward remembering who you still are. This isn't about the past, it's about today, right now, and your decision to come back to yourself.